Welcome to the BankTalk podcast, the show where we talk to leaders and experts from the community banking sector. Whether you are a current CEO or aspire to be one, this podcast will give you valuable insights and advice on how to run your financial institution better. Each episode explores a new topic with a guest who brings their unique experience and knowledge. Tune in and discover something new each time you listen.
Hello and welcome to Bank Talk. I'm Sean Cunningham, Sales Executive here at Remedy Consulting. And today I'm joined by Charlie Kelly, founder and partner at Remedy Consulting, who many of you know very well as the host of this podcast. And Charlie had something kind of strange happen today and would just like to share it with the crew. So welcome, Charlie.
Thanks, Sean. So this is a conversation that I had with QuickBooks. And if for those of you on the podcast that do not know QuickBooks, I'm assuming that most of our listeners are bankers in some way, shape, or form. And so they may not be QuickBooks users, but QuickBooks is effectively an accounting software, probably used by many of your customers. And what it does is it rolls up your financials. If you're a small business, it rolls up your financials for you, allows you to provide something to your accountant at the end of the year, may help you with invoicing. So they'll produce an invoice for you. Pretty basic stuff. Where QuickBooks has become kind of the leader, in my opinion, in the accounting software is many, many years ago, they came up with a functionality that allowed a small business user or any user to extract their business records from their business account and drop them into QuickBooks, so you don't have to go type in that you spent $300 with Verizon. The Verizon invoice that you paid with your credit card or with bank account just drops right in there. You just have to make sure that you categorize it properly, and then it rolls up into your P&L for the year.
Makes it easy.
Yep. So that's QuickBooks, in case you're not familiar with them. But the experience that we had was this. We get an email that says you've been paid. So in our scenario, we do our invoicing through QuickBooks. So we invoice all of our customers here at Remedy. So one day last week, we get an email from QuickBooks that says you've been paid, right? And normally you send out an invoice, and when you send out that invoice, you send your ACH information or whatever information you need for them to pay your invoice, okay? In the old days, it was your address, right? So they'd send you a check. These days, everybody's a little less comfortable with that, so they prefer ACH. So typically what we would do is we would send out our invoice, and then shortly thereafter, or maybe attached to that, would be ACH instructions. Here's my bank account. Here's the routing number. So we send that out, and we get a notice back from QuickBooks that we've been paid. Okay. And normally you would say to yourself, oh, so what does that mean? Right. Well, if you think about it, right, when somebody pays my invoice and the ACH goes to my bank, QuickBooks wouldn't know that, right? So there's nothing that QuickBooks would be as part of the loop of getting paid. QuickBooks is not really part of that loop, right? They just simply send out the invoice. So at some point when the invoice gets paid, you just check it in there and you go from there on the accounting side. So it didn't occur to me that okay, QuickBooks would know whether I've been paid or not. And then we got an email from one of their customer service folks that says, we have $7,000 sitting in our account on payment from one of your QuickBooks invoices. Now I'm going to stop there, Sean, because I as the moderator, I want to make sure you understand where I am so far. Are we good with that? You follow me so far?
I'm following you so far. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we make a phone call to customer support at QuickBooks, and they said, oh, we have your $7,000. And I said, well, how? Right? Like, how are you in the loop of me getting paid by my customer? And their response was, well, we signed you up for QuickBooks, call it Quick Pay. They have a name for the functionality.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I didn't sign me up. Like, I don't want you in the loop of my payments, right? Oh, no, you've signed up for this. And I go, no, we never, like, that is never, I just send the ACH information. So what she explains that our customer, who is also a bank, by the way, has paid QuickBooks $25 to make the payment through QuickBooks. Okay. So now there's $7,000 sitting in an account at QuickBooks. And I go, my conversation with the customer support person was, well, clearly you've made a mistake. I don't have that service with you, but that's okay. Just I'll give you my ACH information. You can just send the dollars back. And the response was, we cannot, by law, send you your $7,000 without you signing up for the service.
But I thought they already said you'd signed up for it.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. But it gets even more bizarre. Right. So this is what I was saying bizarre. Right. So they have $7,000 of my money or my customers. I'm not sure. Right. Like, I don't know who's actually, clearly the customer's intent was to pay. They thought they were paying me. They paid QuickBooks. Right.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, first of all, I didn't sign up for it. I said, where, when, and where? And they said, well, in the 3-point font you get when you sign up and you say, I'll use your software.
Yep.
You know how there's a book of material there that you probably, if you'd read it, it would take you a day and a half.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, okay, maybe it's in there. I said, that's okay if it is. Please just send me the verbiage of the one paragraph where it says I signed up for you to take a payment on my behalf. And she said, okay, I will do that. And then I said, now let's get back to the ACH. I said, I would like the money in my bank. There's no way I'm signing up for a service that, first of all, I never intended. And secondly, like, this is just out of my, I'm out of my head just trying to figure out where this came from. And she goes, well, again, we cannot do that. So we can do one of two things. We can either send it back to the customer, which means now I've got to go explain to my customer that somebody took $7,000 of their money. It was not me, even though clearly somewhere on their invoice it must have said, make your payment this way, right?
And just to be clear, the customer, to your knowledge, they did this transaction. They wanted to pay you. It wasn't anything where QuickBooks is just grabbing this in some weird thing.
Right. And they paid QuickBooks a $25 fee to do the ACH. So now remember, we typically through QuickBooks, as part of the invoicing process, also send our payment information. So it's attached to the invoice. So at least we thought it was, right? Attached to the invoice. So my first thought would be, why pay $25 when it's just as easy to just build an ACH with my account information in it, right? Mine being the service provider. So I had this conversation with the QuickBooks person. I go, well, first of all, I'm a little miffed, right? That you would ever take and secondly, now you're telling me I got to go back to my customer and explain this to them, that you took a payment, it's going to be returned to them. I've got to get my money back. We have this conversation, and it was, I guess I would probably say, like, you ever see one of those kung fu movies in the old days where one guy's throwing punches at super speed because they sped it up, and then you have the other person blocking punches, right?
Uh-huh.
That was kind of how it went for a while, because I'm like, was starting to get a little just miffed about this. And the block seemed to be, okay, you can do one of two things. We can either return the money to your customer, or you can sign up for this service and we will get you your money. Okay. Eventually she just goes, there's no other options for you. You're done here. And closes the ticket and hangs up the phone. So before we're even really finished, she closes the ticket and hangs up the phone. So I'm like, okay, this is not going to work for me. I did not tell her to send the money back, right? I did not tell her I was signing up for my service. The conversation ended. So I call the fraud department at QuickBooks. And the fraud department at QuickBooks gives me the same spiel. And I go, okay, fine. I will apologize to my customer on behalf of QuickBooks, or me, I guess, that we inerrantly took a payment that I had no idea we were taking. Well, I start talking to the fraud person for a while, and as it turns out, the fraud person lets me in on the fact that no, this isn't something you signed up for. This was an error in code where they pushed out this ability to pay. They basically threw the toggle on wherever that toggle is in your administrative settings that says, yes, we will take a QuickBooks payment on their behalf. So they did this for a bunch of customers, and they didn't know who, so they couldn't turn it back off. So that was the conversation. So I get to this, I'm going, wow, this is getting more and more bizarre the more I talk about it, right? So I'll stop there, Sean. You follow me so far?
I'm following you. So if I'm hearing you right here, Charlie, one of the recurring themes that we've had for seems like years on the BankTalk podcast is how banks and fintechs are really trying to get their head around payments. And here we have exactly that. A fintech is going out and really trying to really muscle into the bank space and take payments on their behalf.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I mean, that's dead on. And the other thing, I mean, so that occurred to me a little bit. And then the other thing that occurred to me in the same space is, how, this is a bank making the payment to me, right? So the recurring theme seems to be, yes, we have a lot of podcasts on payments. We also have a lot of podcasts on fraud, right? So is this fraud? I don't know. Like, I don't know the answer, but wait, let me finish the story because there's one more in the punchline. So then I say, okay, fine, send the money back. This is with the fraud person I'm talking to now.
Mhm.
This is in their fraud department. And I say, well, first of all, this feels like fraud to me. We'll finish that in a minute. If you're saying to me, the only way to get the money back out of your institution is either to sign up for a service that I don't want or send it back to the customer, you send it back to the customer. And she goes, okay. I said, so can I expect that will be back in the customer's bank so I can make a phone call to them by tomorrow, the day after, right? Like when will this payment end up in the customer's account? August 22nd, which by the way is about a month from when this happened. So it will take them 1 month to return the funds to the customer. I'm kind of in shock, right? Because I know it takes a day to get an ACH over 2 at the most.
Yeah.
Right? And then I said, well, hold on. If I would have signed up for your service, are you telling me it would have taken me a month to get paid? And she says, no, I could have gotten it to you by tomorrow. And I'm like, well, then get the payment back to my customer by tomorrow. I want to have this conversation. I don't want to have a conversation a month from now with my customer that I apologize. We had to back out a transaction that we didn't even know was going on. That even makes me look worse. And she says, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. I said, well, then let me talk to somebody that's a supervisor, like you would in one of
Yep.
his customer service calls. No, that's your only option. I'm your only option here. And the feeling that I got, and again, I don't know the true story behind the code, and I got 2 different stories from 2 different people. One was that I signed up for it. One was that it was a code error, right? I didn't know, but in my head, I was thinking they must get this phone call a lot from people who are pissed because this must be the direction they take it. The direction is, no, we can't escalate them because the supervisors would have way too many of these things to talk about. So then I said, well, okay, then I tell you what, I want a supervisor to call me. I want somebody at a higher level to call me. We can't do that either, but I can put you in the queue. And I said, well, just, like at this point, I'm somewhere between laughing and crying, right? And I'm like, just out of curiosity, you're telling me somebody can't call me back. How long's the queue? Well, it ranges from an hour and a half. So she was offering to transfer me to some line to talk to a supervisor, an hour and a half, 2 hours to talk to somebody about this. And that this was, it wouldn't gotten me anything other than make me feel better. So we go through this entire experience. And then finally, like I said, I'm somewhere between laughing and crying because I just don't know what to think. I've never seen an experience like this. And I say to her, I called the fraud department because I feel like QuickBooks defrauded me. And based on everything you told me, you kind of did. And she goes, oh, well, that's not the fraud department. That's not this fraud department. I go, well, what is this fraud department for? Right? Like, who can I report? If I can't report your fraud to somebody higher up your chain, right, then who is this fraud department for? And then she goes, well, this is in case you feel like you've been defrauded. I go, I feel like I have by you. So we have this sort of Laurel and Hardy conversation going on for a while. And then I say to her, so what are my ramifications here? Like, what if you're saying this fraud does not cover QuickBooks defrauding their own customers? What should I do about it? And she goes, well, sir, if you've been defrauded, you should call the police. I said, call the police on you? Like, is this conversation really happening? Right. So now again, it was both funny and disturbing at the same time. And then I'm thinking to myself, right. So here's kind of the punchline. I'm thinking to myself, I can just imagine calling the police and my local police and telling them the story. And they're going, okay, well, who can we call? You already know who took your money, right? Who can we call? And all I can think of is giving them the ticket number that has been closed on me and giving them the 800 number to QuickBooks. Like, is that what I give the arresting officer? Here, call QuickBooks. They'd be happy to answer you. Here's my ticket number. So I'll stop there because it just, to me, like everything about it was wrong. But apparently the $7,000 invoice will be paid back to the customer in a month.
Okay.
Then my intent would be to go to that customer, make sure it got refunded, and then come back around and ask them again to pay me directly.
Wow. So is there any resolution to this? If another one of our clients tomorrow went out to pay an invoice, is there a chance this could happen again?
Well, yeah, and that's why I thought it might be worth at least having a conversation around it because I mean, like you said before, right? It resonates sort of in the fraud column, it resonates in the payments column, and just how hard these folks are trying, these fintechs are trying to get payments revenue that they didn't have before, right? So that if I'm thinking about punchline for the audience, I would say one of those two things. Like this is a story that hits both those columns. But the more I think about it, if QuickBooks truly has this problem and they don't know who they did it to, then it probably doesn't touch the banks, but it might very well touch the bank's customers. If they push this code out and when I go send an invoice out to my customer, there's the possibility that QuickBooks might take the payment on my behalf. And hopefully, right, like even when this email came through that says you've got paid, and then this next email that says we have your money, if that goes to spam, you'd never even know they took the payment.
Right.
Like you literally would not know that. So if anything, if you're in the commercial lending space and you have customers that use QuickBooks, which a lot of them do, I would at least be thinking about sending them this podcast or warning them that if you don't intend that anybody should ever get paid through QuickBooks, you'd better make sure that you're either calling them or we did find a toggle eventually. We found the toggle to shut this thing off, but everybody else, it's been turned on and they don't know which one's to shut off. So, the fact that they coveted the $25 enough to put the code out there in the first place, they must have thought it was a good revenue stream.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've been in coding long enough to know you can always have an error. But the fact that they didn't go send something out to all their customers saying you might all have been affected if your intent was not there. And the fact that if I can get my money in 1 day if I sign up for your service, and I can get my money in 30 days for you just giving it back, right? Just that dynamic of 1 day versus 30 days leads me to believe that their resolution, most people just say, sure, I'll just click the button.
Right.
And now you can always take a payment for me. In other words, it's a revenue stream, right? They're abnormally creating their own revenue stream because we were very close to saying, fine. Like that was before we knew 30 days versus 1 day.
Mhm.
Before we were just like, get us our money. Yeah. So back to the conversation around what would one of our listeners care about? I think it is, you might want to warn your customers because we have Remedy can live with the $7,000 not being there for a month, but a lot of small businesses can't. And if the approach is just sign up for our service and we'll get you your money right away, I think the banks are going to lose some revenue stream there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the services they provide, this is actually being forced upon their customers.
And I could see a lot of small business clients calling the bank. It's been 2 decades since I was in a chair like that at a bank, but I took a lot of those calls. When something goes wrong, they call the bank to figure it out. So just to have the awareness to it, I think is great as well.
Well, particularly if they didn't know that they got paid. Like they might have thought if they never got that email, and QuickBooks, either if they got the one that said you got paid and then it's not showing up in your bank account because it didn't come through ACH, right? Or they never got either email. Now it's just money that's gone, right? Like they wouldn't even know that it was there. Now, obviously they're going to figure it out with a lot of work on their part. But yeah, apparently you go sit on hold for 30 minutes and find out that number one, you can't talk to anybody about this. And number two, why don't you just click that button over there that says we can take payments for you?
Yeah.
It's almost like, yeah, we have just given you the worst service in the world. Please sign up for the next service. Can we offer you another product?
Wow.
But that, again, I just thought we should talk about it here a little bit on BankTalk because it's so bizarre. It's just such an abnormal experience. And the only way to get to anybody is a ticket that doesn't get escalated ever. Apparently, they must be taking enough calls. They don't escalate them.
Every business I talk to uses QuickBooks. Is there even an alternative? I'm sure there is.
I mean, that conversation around, is there another alternative? And I think my response was, I wasn't immediately going to get them replaced because I don't know that there's another one that can pull those transactions from the bank. So again, maybe we should just have that little bit of a blurb. That's why they're the industry leaders, because I think they can yank. Because if you don't yank those trans, like in the old days, you had to literally type in. You'd have to go say, "I see the bank says I spent $100 on my card. I got to figure out what the card was for, what the 100 was for, and type it into QuickBooks line by line." It was miserable. Right now, you suck them all in. You just recategorize them. You go, okay, I know that's for marketing. That one's for this. That functionality, when I see that at the bank, with let's say a Jack Henry customer, the bank pays for that. They pay for that QuickBooks extract. That's a line item on their bill, so they're paying to have that done. But I've never seen one with other providers done that way.
Well, you'd think
So
in this day and age, somebody else would have that API or however they're doing that connectivity to pull that off, but who knows?
yeah, I would imagine. So I don't know whether that's worth the conversation, but to me, yeah, I don't know that there like everybody has QuickBooks because of that. I think.
I think so
I-
too. Well, this was an interesting one. I've listened to a lot of the Bank Talk podcasts since I've been here, and this is a little bit off script for us. But I just think it was kind of humorous, and I know you're the one that had to deal with it. But at the same point in time, frustrating, and I think it was a good idea to get our listeners, let them know what was going on.
Well, I appreciate you spending a few minutes with me, Sean.
Well, thanks for joining Bank Talk in a little bit different capacity today, Charlie. And thanks to all the listeners for listening in today. Keep learning. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Bank Talk podcast, brought to you by Remedy Consulting. If you like what you hear, please rate, review, and share our work with others. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.